RX Television on RxMuscle.com. This is Ask Dave, better known as hashtag Ask Dave, brought to you by Species Nutrition. Visit speciesnutrition.com. I'm your host, Sadiq Faruqi. This is your weekly 30-minute question and answer show with Dave Palumbo. All your questions on diet, training, supplementation, IFBB pros, competitions. This past weekend was the Arnold Classic Brazil, as well as a highly competitive Charlotte Pro. The 212 division is what Dave and Chris did an RX recap of yesterday. That is available right now on RxMuscle.com and the YouTube channel. As we now bring in Dave Palumbo. Dave, you and John Romano doing a rant on Iron Rage about a recent news topic involving Melvin Anthony, and as well as where some bodybuilders have gone the wrong way as of late.
Yeah, it's a shame when you see bodybuilders that are so talented, not just as bodybuilders, but as individuals, go down a really bad path and, get into crime and wind up having to do jail time or rehab or dying, which is the worst, obviously, option. And, I always liked Melvin. I thought Melvin was a super talented guy. I've said it before. I think he might be one of the greatest posers in the history of our sport. I actually think that some of his routines were better than Kai Green's. So, here's a guy with this ultimate talent, great shape and conditioning. Probably in this day and age, he would have even been a better bodybuilder because we really are starting to reward aesthetics more. But he just went down the wrong path, and he wound up getting arrested for the third time, and he's doing some serious time now. And obviously he's going to have plenty of time to contemplate what he did, but it's just a shame that we see bodybuilders going down these terrible paths.
On that note, again, that Iron Rage is available right now on RxMuscle.com and the YouTube channel. If you're watching us on YouTube for the first time, hit the subscribe button below. You're not going to miss any of our shows, segments, news updates. Obviously, we are in the thick of the contest season, so we're going to have a lot of contest-related content. Of course, the New York Pro is coming up on May 20th. So you're not going to want to miss our previews leading up to it, and as well as the interviews that we're going to have at the site of the 2017 New York Pro. Let's go to the questions. Let's go. You mentioned aesthetics, Dave. The first question is about classic physique. It's from TRP1256. What would you consider a good time to start taking gear if you want to compete in classic physique?
When to take gear is such an individualized question because for every person it's a different answer. I know guys that think when they're 13 they should be taking gear, which is obviously not the right time. I personally, I don't believe that anyone should use gear until after 18 or older. That's just me. And I think if you wait till 20, 21, you're even better. Yeah, you're not going to get results as quickly, but once you start doing it, you're going to have a much more mature body to work with, and you're going to get better results long term. But I understand that people have very low, I guess you could say, patience levels for as far as waiting for muscle gains. Now, personally, I never took anything until I was 22. But I was a runner before that, so I got to get a late start on bodybuilding from that perspective. But I made amazing gains. I gained 100 pounds in 5 years of muscle. So as far as classic physique goes, there are guys right out of the gate who take stuff. But if you've been training a number of years and you want to take that next step, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. It's the guys that have been training for 3 months who start taking gear. Those are the guys that are idiots because you can grow naturally for the first 2 years of training almost as easily as you can with gear. So you might as well get all that advantage of just the training without anything. And then when you hit a plateau, then you can consider and contemplate starting to take something.
Also available right now on RxMuscle.com and the RxMuscle YouTube channel, our interview at the Arnold Classic Brazil with the legendary Lee Haney, right now on RxMuscle.com and the YouTube channel. Let's go to the Muscle Central Forum. Curl Warrior. Hi, Dave. I hate this show more than Sid hates sounding like a dying robot every time your internet connection cuts out while he's talking. Nice. Well, see, right now, what I'm looking at is Johnny Styles in the refurbished new studios, so I'm sure they're going to give you a video tour of that soon, but those issues should be a thing of the past. For an Aural Cycle for females, Is 4 weeks on, 4 weeks off optimal for minimizing side effects while getting good gains? From your experience with clients, what's the maximum dosage of Winstrol a female can run without experiencing masculine side effects?
You know, I never like these short cycles on and off, because it's kind of like dieting for 4 weeks on and then 4 weeks off. What happens on the 4 weeks off? You gain all the weight back that you just lost. So you lose the continuity of the diet. Same thing with the cycle. You know, when you're on for 4 weeks, you're just starting to make good gains in 4 weeks. If you go off, you're going to lose those gains, and then it's like you're starting over again. So yeah, your receptors may be fresh, but who cares? It's continuity. So you know, I like to see, you know, for women 8 to 12 week cycles. Even 16 weeks I think is okay if you're not using anything too strong. And then clean out for 8 weeks, you know, 8 to 10 weeks, you know, because so, you know, usually women will do like a short off-season cycle of 8 weeks or something like that. They'll take, you know, a couple weeks off, take a break, then they'll go into their contest prep for 16 weeks, and then I have them usually clean out for a couple, like 3 months. So that's the right way to do it. Now, as far as what compounds you can take, and I've said this before, I don't think women should take anything more than Anamar, really, if you don't want side effects. If you don't mind a little bit of side effects, you can do a little Winstrol or Primavol. If you do anything more than that, you're going to get bad side effects. And it might not happen right away. They're cumulative. So you don't even realize it. And then after, just if you think about it, and I've said this, I've made this analogy before, when a boy goes into puberty and he starts producing testosterone, he doesn't look like a man after, you know, after 16 weeks of starting to produce testosterone. It takes 3-4 years, you know, before he masculinizes and his voice gets deeper and his jaw grows a little bit. So that's the same thing that's happening with women who are not taking massive amounts of stuff, but they're taking stuff that they shouldn't be taking. Little by little, they're becoming, you know, masculinized. So we don't want that. Winstrol probably shouldn't be taken any more than 10 to 12 milligrams a day. Anavar could probably be used up to 20 milligrams per day for women. Primavol, I wouldn't take more than 50 milligrams per week. So, I mean, that's if you want, you know, if you want to really keep side effects minimized. If you don't care about side effects, which you have to be a moron if you don't as a woman, then you can take more of that stuff. You can go higher dosed on those compounds. But like I said, I would not be playing around with Deca or Masteron or EQ because you will definitely get serious side effects from that.
Well, checking on our Facebook page, again, our official Facebook page is RxMuscle.com, all one word. Let's go to Harsidseen, Go Hill, Dave. Do artificial sweeteners make our bodies release insulin?
I'm drinking what am I drinking here, Johnny? A Clear American, it's called. And it's golden peach flavor. It's really good. It's got a lot of aspartame in it. And you know what? I'm drinking it now because I was getting tired before the show. So I'm drinking this and it's waking me up. And there's no caffeine in there. So I don't believe that. I don't believe that artificial sweetness will cause insulin release. Now, let me make a preface to that. When I used to diet back in the day, there was no sucralose. We had aspartame, and they just came out with, this is in the 90s, with like powdered aspartame. It looked like sugar, and you can spoon the stuff into your food or whatever, drinks, whatever you wanted to use it in. And you know, I was dieting so hard, and I was so hungry. I was like eating it out of the container because I figured, oh, no calories, right? And I got a migraine headache, and I would get insulin drops from that because I think if you took too much in, it can trick your body a little bit. But by and far, I don't think artificial sweeteners will drop your blood sugar. I never noticed it. I know that a lot of people have very good results and good sticking to the diet results, I should say, when they are allowed to have a little bit of an artificial sweetened drink because it kind of takes that sweet edge off.
Let's go to Stephen Hood. Hi, mate. So I'm guessing he's from England or Australia. Was just confused watching one of your old videos on the keto diet. You said carbs are not essential, but then you said to gain muscle, you said do the same, but add carbs. So my question is, why do you need carbs to gain weight when they're not essential?
It's a good question. I'll give you my answer. Carbohydrates are not necessary in the muscle building process. They're merely a fuel source. So from a perspective of what goes into muscle tissue, it's protein and fat. So that's what you need. Those are the building blocks of muscle tissue. However, when you're trying to maximize muscle gains, okay, and if you only eat protein and fat, which is what your body requires, what is your body using as a fuel source? Well, what it's going to do is it's going to use fat for the low intensity activity, but the high intensity activity that it needs carbohydrates for, it's going to convert the protein that you're eating into carbs, okay, which is a very inefficient process. It also is taking away from the protein that you're eating. So now you're not going to grow maximally because 50% of the protein that you thought you were taking in is actually getting used to turn into energy. So it's easier in the off season to eat a little bit of carbs, just enough to fuel your body during these high intensity activities like weight training you're doing, so that all the protein you're eating and fat gets used for building and repairing muscle. So that's, if you heard the term carb spare muscle, they just spare the protein and the fat that you're consuming in your diet to be used for rebuilding muscle. That's why I say that. It's a more efficient process to building muscle. Now, can you build muscle just eating fat and protein? Yeah, if you ate enough of it, I guess. You'd have to really eat a lot of protein, though. To me, I think, like I said, if you can figure out how many grams of carbs you need a day, and for some people it's 100 grams, okay, that's enough. And if you just eat that with the right amount of protein and fat, you'll grow. So it's not really, I wouldn't call that a high carb, off-season diet. I would call it a very low carb off-season, but it's still some carbs.
Well, let's go to Scott Treptow. I'm on HRT 350 mg every other week. My doctor thought about bumping me from 300 to 400, but was concerned about my hemoglobin levels. My levels at 300 were 16.3, with 17.5 being the highest normal level. Is there a way other than donating blood to lower hemoglobin levels? And is it really that big of a concern considering the much higher levels of test bodybuilders are using?
Yeah. I was going to do a whole science show, and I still might. I was going to do it on hemoglobin, high hemoglobin and red blood cell count, because I think I've been getting a lot of questions about that lately. For some reason, when guys take hormone replacement, it causes what we call hematopoiesis, which is the production of red blood cells from the bone marrow, okay? Anabolic steroids, we knew, did that for years. We've known that. As a matter of fact, a lot of them were created, especially anadrol 50, DECA, to actually stimulate red blood cell count. They were made for people who were anemic. And then eventually they developed the hormone known as erythropoietin, EPO, which is a protein hormone that stimulates the bone marrow to produce red blood cells. So they didn't have to give steroids to kids and to women and stuff like that. They would just give them this EPO, which is what they do for people who have failed kidneys, because the EPO is produced by the kidneys. Now, having said that, but anabolic steroids still increase red blood cell count. And you would think that, yeah, if you're taking DECA and equipoise and all these other things, your red blood cell count would be high. But I know guys taking 100 milligrams of testosterone a week and their red blood cell counts are high. Now, what's wrong with that? Well, it could be dangerous potentially, because if your red blood cell count gets too high, and that would obviously also raise your hemoglobin hematocrit, because that's a measure of how much those things are found in the red blood cells. Your blood gets thicker, okay? And if your blood gets too thick, and if you get a little dehydrated, it could theoretically sludge or clot or clump. It can cause strokes, heart attacks if it happens in the coronary arteries. Not something we want, right? So most doctors recommend getting rid of the blood. In other words, go donate the blood, or they can bloodlet you. My experience is that a lot of bodybuilders have high hemoglobin hematocrit. I think that you can get away with a high hemoglobin hematocrit way more than people think. If you think about what endurance athletes do, trying to raise their red blood cell count purposely, especially cyclists, to carry more oxygen, and they're not dropping dead, okay, and they're dehydrated riding on a bike, I don't think bodybuilders necessarily have to worry about it. I wouldn't let it get too high, and I don't think that it's a bad idea to donate a pint of blood here and there, but I wouldn't get nuts about it. And if you're taking a good fish oil supplement like my Omega-Lyze product, which has all the essential fatty acids in there, those are very anti-clot, okay? They're anti-inflammatory and they're anti-clot type of compounds. In other words, they inhibit the clotting process in the bloodstream. That's why before surgery, if you ever have to get a surgery, they always tell you no fish oil, okay? 2 weeks before the surgery, because they don't want you to bleed, once they cut you. I've had, unfortunately, too many surgeries on my knee, and every time I do it, I got to stop, or if you got to get gynecomastia surgery, you got to stop your fish oils. Also, vitamin E has that same effect. So if you're taking the right amount of essential fatty acids, okay, and your hemoglobin hematocrit is not realm of possibilities, meaning it's not crazy high, I really wouldn't get too concerned about it. I think people get a little too crazy about hemoglobin hematocrit, and they want to donate blood every 2 weeks. It's unnecessary. Matter of fact, I think donating blood too much might actually cause the body to start producing even more red blood cells at an accelerated rate, because the body thinks it's bleeding and it's losing blood. So that's something to consider.
You're watching Ask Dave on RxMuscle.com, your weekly 30-minute question and answer show with Dave Palumbo, brought to you by Species Nutrition. Let's go to Andrew Apuzzo. Dave, have you ever heard of digestive leukocytosis? And if so, what are your thoughts?
To be honest with you, I really am not positive what it is. Digestive would imply something to do with the digestive system. Leukocytosis would imply leukocytes are white blood cells, and cytosis is death. So I don't know, is death of white blood cells from something going on in the digestive tract? I don't know. I'm not sure. You know, like I said, I don't know everything. I know a lot, and I don't prepare ahead of time, so I'm not really sure about that.
Let's go to Jonka. Dave, I hate this show so much. I'd rather be an MD athlete and have Bleckman tell me that I'm handsome, that I'm a handsome man while paying me in MD covers. What is best for a guy looking to compete in bodybuilding but has no current plans in the next 2-3 years, just wanting to get as big as possible? The old bulking and cutting, or should one try to have abs and be in good shape all the time?
That's a personal decision, once again. I mean, it really is. I mean, I don't know what your goals are. I mean, if you want to put on a lot of size, I mean, I would put size on. If you want to be lean and look good for the, all the time, then stay leaner. It's really a personal decision. When I would get off a contest diet, okay, I would try to put on as much mass as possible, and I wouldn't worry about being bloated, and I wouldn't worry about looking, all handsome and being able to go for an interview in the city, or I should say, go for an audition in the city for a commercial, something like that. If I had to take a diuretic, I took a diuretic. I didn't worry about it. When I was growing, I was growing. When I was dieting, I was dieting, and it was cut and dry. There was no in between. Now, if you want to kind of bounce back and forth between in shape, out of shape, in shape, out of shape, you'll probably never make any progress. So you got to pick what your goals are, create a plan, and then follow that plan.
Scotty_ham007. We're now on our Instagram page. Again, if you're not following us on Instagram, it is at @official_RxMuscle. Scotty_ham. What is your reason why you only train one body part per week? I train my weaker body parts up to 3 times a week. Is this hindering me?
I think that overtraining in bodybuilding is much more prevalent than undertraining. What I mean is that I think that when guys, especially when they get on gear, they think they got to train the body part, as much as possible, especially weak body parts, to make it grow. And I think that's a huge mistake, because I think that the problem why a body part is stubborn or doesn't grow is there's one of 2 reasons. Number one, either you're not really feeling the body part in the gym, you don't have that good mind-muscle connection, or the body part just can't recover well. So because it's not recovering, it's not growing. It's like you're breaking it down more than you're creating an anabolic drive to make it bigger. So most people, I feel, overtrain. And because of that, and I was an overtrainer, and I found this out, the hard way, because I would train with these guys that like to do 100 sets, and they wanted to train each body part twice a week, and I just I always felt sore, and I always felt like I wasn't making any progress. When I cut back my training to 1 body part per week, and I cut the volume back even on that 1 body part, I noticed I started growing at an accelerated rate. And the more time I took off and the more rest and recovery I gave myself, the better I grew. And, it goes back to the old, high-intensity training philosophy of Mike Mentzer, Casey Viator, Arthur Jones, Dorian Yates. Stimulate the muscle and get the hell out of the gym. You shouldn't, once you maximally stimulate the muscle with heavy weights, any more sets after that, you're just basically breaking down the muscle further, but you're not really getting into deeper fibers. You're just making it harder to recover from the workout. So, as Lee Haney said, stimulate, don't annihilate, get in the gym, stimulate it, and let the body part grow. If you have a weak body part, train it hard when you do, but give it more rest. In other words, maybe rather than once every 7 days, train it once every 8 days, Especially, I see this with guys with leg problems. They got the worst legs, and they training them 3 times a week, and they look worse. Train them once a week hard, and that's it, and give them a break. and stay off them. Don't walk around all day. My old saying was, walk instead of run, sit instead of, or walk instead of run, sit instead of walk, lay down instead of, sitting. So the more you rest, the more you recover, basically.
Let's go to Jack and Stacked, one good friend of the show. Dave, in your opinion, would it be more beneficial muscle growth-wise to use a beef isolate protein powder rather than a whey isolate?
I don't see any advantage of beef over whey, aside from the fact that some people who have severe lactose intolerance might benefit from it. But even still, a good high-quality whey isolate, like my Isolyze product, which is the highest yield protein out there at 27.5 grams per 32 gram serving size. Those are pretty pure, and whey protein tastes a lot better than beef protein does. Also, a lot of people don't like to eat. They have an anti-red meat thing going on. I don't think it's terrible. I just, I'm not a big, huge fan of the taste of beef isolate. Although I almost came out with one because I had a great chocolate peanut butter flavored one that tasted pretty good. But I don't have a problem with people using beef. To me, it's just not that tasty. That's all. And I don't think it offers that much of an advantage or any of an advantage. I think it's probably comparable to whey.
RFitness03, I want to know how long you can run Trenbolone, like 16 to 20 weeks or more.
I wouldn't run Trenbolone that long, to be honest with you. I would try to keep the Trenbolone cycles anywhere from 8 to 10 weeks at a time. I think that's enough. It's a very rapidly acting compound. It traumatizes the nervous system. That's why guys have trouble sleeping at night and they get irritable. Some people get bowel problems because it irritates the digestive system. It's a rough compound on the body. If it raises your blood pressure, which it does in a lot of people, it's going to cause kidney stress. So you got to be careful with Trenbolone. I don't think it needs to be taken any more than 8 weeks before a show or 8 weeks in an off-season scenario. So cycle it on and off, on and off, on and off, because you don't want to be on it all the time.
Ilyas.Ali, why are we not getting feeds from all bodybuilding contests? How can we change that for the fans?
I already put my 2 cents out there on this about a year and a half ago about how I felt that I could create a network if people wanted to get the IFBB and everyone wanted to come work with me about this. And I got all this people like foo-fooing me like, oh, he knows better than us. I just wanted to offer it. I didn't even want to do it. I just wanted to offer the idea. I wish we should. There should be one website, central website. It could be the ifbbpro.com. That's where we go for all the results anyway, that you can tune into, and you should be able to watch the feeds from all the shows. I don't know why. What they should do is, instead of charging, I don't know what they charge anymore for sanction fees for these IFBB shows, give promoters a $500 or $1,000 price break if they agree to live stream the show to the IFBB Pro website. So in other words, you get a login, the promoter has to provide a video camera with an internet connection that would upload the feed to the IFBB Pro website, and then people could just tune in and watch whenever they want. And it wouldn't cost anything because the promoter would be saving money. The IFBB would give them a little discount, but they would be getting so much traffic to their website from all these feeds they could charge for advertising. It would be a bonanza. I mean, I wish I could coordinate this whole thing, but the only people who can make it happen are the people who run the IFBB and the powers that be. If they wanted to do it, it would be very simple in today's world with the technology we have, with the internet connection and connectivity that we have. You'd put one camera on the stage and that's it. I mean, it's a no-brainer.
Let's go to Big Daddy Jenks. Dave, what in your opinion are the best peak week hacks to optimizing the look of legs on stage?
Number one, don't train your legs 7 days before the show. So if you're doing a show on Saturday, the last leg workout should be the Saturday before that. Why? Because you want the muscles in the leg to heal up. I'll give you a good example, and I'm sure you guys probably can remember this. You had to miss the gym for a week or two because maybe you had a wisdom tooth pulled or you had some kind of a minor surgery. And if you notice, the longer you're away from the gym, all of a sudden you start looking really good. You're like, holy mackerel, I got good separation in my muscles. My legs are showing. I got details in my quads that I didn't have before. How is that happening? What's going on here? I'm not even working out. Well, it's because all the muscle tissue is healing up from all the working out. Think about it. We constantly berate our bodies with workouts day in and day out, and it breaks down the muscle. And you give the body 2 weeks to heal up. The muscles look amazing, and you're not going to lose any muscle probably for 3-4 weeks, before you start getting atrophy. So after those 2 weeks, you really look good, and that's another testament to why, number one, you don't want to overtrain a muscle. Number two, why you don't want to train it too much, and number three, why you don't train legs the week before the show. Legs take the longest to recover, especially because you're doing cardio on top of leg training. So give those legs, as far as weight training wise, a week off. The rest of the upper body, you want to give at least 2 days off. So if you have a Saturday show, you stop training on Wednesday.
Let's go to Boy from Paris, 1337. Dave, for long-term prostate protection for bodybuilders, do you think pumpkin seed oil at 1 to 3 grams is going to help blunt tested DHT conversion enough to make a difference? I read some promising studies about it. Also, what's your opinion on raloxifene for protecting the prostate? In Europe, it's hard to get these third-generation SERMs from an underground lab, but they seem promising to me. I really don't want to go the finasteride route unless absolutely necessary.
Yeah, I'm not sold on these SARMs, and especially SARMs for prostate protection. I don't buy into that. There might be a couple sporadic studies out there. I haven't read anything that convinced me of that. Now, I know a lot of guys don't like to use finasteride because it's something you have to take forever. That's really the way it works. It's a enzyme blocker. It blocks the 5-alpha reductase enzyme, which converts testosterone into DHT. Obviously, DHT being the irritant on the prostate, also causing hair loss. Personally, most people who tell me that they have, afraid of prostate issues or have some prostate issues, the first thing I do is I put them on my Testosterolize or Testolize product. The reason I do that is it's a natural DHT lowerer or inhibitor, I guess you could say. It doesn't get rid of all the DHT, it just blunts DHT production. And it's because we're using a very high potency form of saw palmetto in there. And the saw palmetto, it also blocks that 5-alpha reductase enzyme to some degree. It doesn't get rid of it completely, and we don't want to get rid of all the DHT. We want to just lower the DHT amount. So if you use Testolize 3 pills twice a day, you'll lower DHT, plus you'll also flush extra estrogen out of the body. And that's important, I'll explain why. Because it's not just the DHT that irritates the prostate, it's the estrogen that's present too. So estrogen sensitizes the prostate, and then the DHT goes in there and can enlarge it. So that's why 18-year-old boys have the highest DHT levels, okay? But they don't have prostate problems and they don't have hair loss problems. Why? Well, because the estrogen is normal in those kids. They don't have high estrogen levels. So they're finding a lot that estrogen has a lot to do with enlargement of the prostate as well. So we want to keep both of those in check. Testolize does it naturally. I would try that first. And then if that doesn't work and you really have an issue with your prostate, you probably want to, number one, go to a urologist, and they might put you on a finasteride type compound or dutasteride.
Let's go to Deltzilla, still on our Instagram page, official_RxMuscle. Dave, you mentioned before that it takes 72 hours for your body to go into ketosis. Is this always the case, or can it be quicker? And are there any specific signs to notice when you're in ketosis?
It could be quicker, it could be longer. Some people take 4 days, 5 days to get into a strong ketosis. And I don't know why that is. I don't know if it's maybe they're getting hidden carbs in their diet somewhere, or some people's bodies just respond better. It's impossible to really know for sure. You'll know when you're in ketosis. It's like someone flipped the light switch on, because when you're not eating carbs, your brain feels goofy. You just feel goofy, and you're not really that astute or intellectually astute. You feel like you're kind of like in a fog. Once you get into ketosis, it's like boom, light switch on, brain feels great. And it happens that quickly. So you'll know when you're in ketosis. And like I said, it usually takes about 3 to 4 days to get into ketosis. Sometimes guys get in a little quicker, especially if they've been on a low-carb diet prior to starting a ketogenic diet. So it is a little diet specific, but like I said, it's probably more genetically individualistic as opposed to what a person's eating. Now, there are people that think they're getting into ketosis and they're still eating a little bit of rice or a little bit of potatoes, thinking, well, it's low enough that I'll get into ketosis. Those people usually have trouble getting into ketosis. I would remove all starchy forms and all sugary forms of carbs. Only fibrous carbs should be allowed in the diet.
Take a couple of more quick questions. This one from eSpec614. Dave, I've looked into this question for a while and cannot seem to find anything on it reliable. I was recently prescribed Adderall for my diagnosed ADHD. Does Adderall have any direct fat-burning properties like, say, clenbuterol, or does it just give you more energy, which in return, you'd burn more calories by moving around? I've used clenbuterol in the past for contest prep and wouldn't want to combine the two. Just curious if in the future I'd be better off dropping the Adderall and using Clen for contest prep or not use Clen at all.
Well, Clen and Adderall don't work by similar mechanisms whatsoever, so they don't really interact with each other. Not that I'm recommending that you take both together, but Adderall, the reason why you might lose weight on Adderall, number one is, because it keeps you awake and it revs your body up. All stimulants will do that. But more so, it's an appetite suppressant. So a lot of people like it because they can stick to their diet better on it. The problem is it's highly addictive. So you can't get off the stuff. I mean, and that's a problem. Plus it messes with the neurotransmitters in your brain because it increases them. The problem is that if you keep increasing, keep pushing your body harder and harder, eventually you burn out. And then what happens is you get the opposite. You don't have enough neurotransmitters present and you feel depressed. And that's usually what happens when guys go off the Adderall, because now their body is not hyper producing these neurotransmitters, and it takes a while to start feeling normal again. Just like if you come off a steroid cycle, you're not going to have a hyper sex drive, coming off the steroid cycle, because now you're going to be back to baseline again, which doesn't feel normal anymore. So the same thing with Adderall. That's the problem with drugs that make you raise your awareness up. Even narcotics do the same thing. You're chasing the high constantly. With the Adderall, you're chasing that feeling of alertness, and it's just artificially induced, so it's never going to feel normal. You want to feel, and I'm energized all the time. I don't do any stimulants. That's the best thing because that'll never run out because there's nothing I'm dependent upon it. I'm just dependent on feeling good on a daily basis, and I try to always find a reason to feel good. And I think that's really what people need to focus on. Now, if you have a legitimate ADH where it requires Adderall and you can't function without it, then you got to take it. I understand that. But for the regular person out there, don't think that that's a shortcut to dieting.
Interesting one here from Caleb Grits. Dave, I've been wanting to get this question. It's been bothering you. I've seen some posts about keto diets, and the main one I've seen is how there's a pro coach out there with a view that said if protein is high in keto, like what you suggest, a 2-to-1 ratio is too much, and the extra protein will convert to glucose and will throw you out of ketosis, and that keto diets should have the majority of calories coming in fat. Is there any truth to this?
The Atkins type ketogenic diet was basically a higher fat, moderate protein, low carb diet, which worked. So for weight loss it works for, but it's not good for performance. Bodybuilders require a much higher amount of protein daily, than the average sedentary person does. Think about how much muscle we're breaking down every single day in the gym. You need to replenish that, okay? If you eat a lower protein, higher fat diet, performance-wise, you'll suffer. You won't be as strong, you won't look as good, okay? And you'll probably lose muscle, okay? On a ketogenic diet where your body is actually using the protein, your body's not going to convert that protein into carbohydrates. It doesn't have to. It has fat as a fuel source. The brain is not dependent on glucose, so your brain is going to use fat as a fuel. The only activity you're doing during the day that requires glucose is weight training. And what are you training for, an hour? That uses 35 grams of carbs, okay? You're getting that indirectly from the food you're eating anyway, so there's no impetus for your body to convert extra protein into glucose. Now, if your protein requirements are 50 grams a day and you're eating 50 grams per meal and you're eating 100 grams of protein per meal, yeah, you might convert some of that because it's extra calories you don't need. So that's why it's important to have a coach who can figure out what the macros are that you need. How much protein per meal, how much fat per meal, and obviously trace carbs. Once you figure that out, you're going to know, okay, if I eat 50 grams of protein, 10% of that's not converting to glucose because I need all that protein. Now, if I eat extra protein, some of it might. But even if you eat extra protein, you might not lose weight because calorically you might have too many calories, but very rarely do I see anyone come out of ketosis. I've never heard someone tell me, you know what, I was feeling great, and then all of a sudden I ate more protein and I felt terrible because my brain was looking for glucose. Doesn't happen.
That's going to do it for this episode of Ask Dave, brought to you by Species Nutrition. Visit speciesnutrition.com. A reminder right now on RxMuscle.com and the YouTube channel, our interview with Lee Haney at the Arnold Classic Brazil, as well as Dave and John Romano's latest episode of Iron Rage. For Johnny Styles and Dave Palumbo, I'm Sadiq Faruqi. We'll see you next time.